Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. The air was heavy with silence as I sat in our dimly lit living room, the clock ticking away the seconds that felt like an eternity. My mind raced, cluttered with thoughts and emotions I couldn't quite comprehend. I never thought it would come to this, sitting here, alone, unraveling the twisted fabric of my marriage. I've been living a lie, I whispered to myself, a cold shiver running down my spine. It was late. The world outside was asleep, but sleep was the last thing on my mind. The revelation of my husband Mark's true nature hung over me like a dark cloud. A faint creak of the door startled me. Mark stepped in, his silhouette outlined by the streetlight filtering through the curtains. His steps were heavy, burdened with an unspoken anger. "Why are you sitting in the dark, Eliza?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that I had never noticed before. I turned to face him, my heart pounding. "We need to talk, Mark. There's something unsettling that I've realized." He let out a sigh, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "What is it now, Eliza?" "It's about us, about you." I hesitated, but the words spilled out. "I've just come to realize you're not the man I thought you were." Mark's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "You lack compassion, forgiveness. I never knew the depth of your malevolence." The word tasted bitter in my mouth. He scoffed, a cold, humorless sound. "Malevolence? You think you know me that well?" The conversation was spiraling, turning into something I hadn't intended. "Mark, I just feel like there's this hatred in you, towards me. I don't understand why." His expression hardened. "Hatred? You think I hate you?" I stood up, feeling a surge of courage. "Yes, I cheated. I admit that. But the way you've been, it's like you despise me." Mark walked over to the window, looking out into the night. "Eliza, do you even hear yourself? You cheated, for a long time. And you expect, what? Compassion? Forgiveness?" His words stung, each one a piercing arrow into my heart. "I know it was wrong, but does that justify your coldness, your cruelty?" He turned to face me, his face a mask of unreadable emotions. "My cruelty? You have no idea what you're talking about." I took a step towards him, my voice trembling. "Then tell me, Mark. Tell me why you've become this stranger." He laughed, a sound devoid of any mirth. "A stranger? I'm the same person I've always been. It's you who changed, Eliza." I felt a lump in my throat, my words caught in a tangle of emotions. "I changed because I had to, because of our situation, because of you." Mark shook his head, a gesture of disbelief. "Our situation? You mean the situation you created by stepping out of our marriage?" My eyes welled up with tears, but I fought them back. "Yes, I made a mistake. But it doesn't give you the right to treat me like this." He walked past me, his steps echoing in the silent room. "You think you know me, Eliza. But you don't. You never did." And with those words, he left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my revelations, and a heart heavy with unanswered questions. The clock continued to tick, marking the passage of time in a world that suddenly felt alien and unforgiving. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the college campus as I sat on a bench, lost in thought. My life had taken a turn I never anticipated. There I was, 20 years old, my future sprawling out before me like an unwritten book, and yet, I felt trapped in a chapter one hadn't planned to write. "Eliza, you're miles away. What's up?" My friend Lisa nudged me, her voice laced with concern. I sighed, the weight of my thoughts evident in my voice. "It's just everything, Lisa. My family, college, life." She sat beside me, her expression understanding. "It's about the money, isn't it? Your dad and his situations." I nodded, the burden of my family's financial struggles pressing down on me. "Yeah, and Tom, my brother, he's doing what he can, but it's not enough. I feel like I'm sinking." Just then, Mark walked across the campus, his toolbox in hand. He was a common sight, the guy who fixed things, but to me, he was just another passerby. "Hey, isn't that the guy who's been checking you out?" Lisa elbowed me playfully. I glanced up, my eyes briefly meeting Mark's. "Him? Seriously?" "I'm not interested, Lisa." Mark seemed to sense our gaze and walked over. "Hey, Eliza. I noticed you sitting here. Everything okay?" I was taken aback by his direct approach. Yeah, I'm fine. Just college stuff." He smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "I get it. College can be tough. If you ever need a hand with anything, let me know." I raised an eyebrow, slightly amused. "Thanks, but I think I'm good." He nodded, undeterred. All right, just offering. Take care, Eliza. As he walked away, Lisa nudged me again. See, he's nice. And he likes you. I rolled my eyes. Lisa, come on. He's a technician, and well, I'm me. We're worlds apart. Later that evening, I recounted the day's events to my mom over dinner. Her laughter filled our small kitchen as I mimicked Mark's earnest offer to help. Mom, can you imagine? Me, with a technician? I laughed along with her, the absurdity of it lightening my mood. She shook her head, still chuckling. Life's full of surprises, Eliza. You never know. The following weeks were a blur of classes and family dramas. Mark became a fleeting thought, a character, and a brief, amusing anecdote. That was until one fateful day, 6 months later. I was accompanying Tom to a tool shop. He needed parts for his new bike, a purchase that had raised many questions, but I chose not to ask. We were browsing when I saw Mark there, talking to the shopkeeper. Hey, isn't that your college technician guy? Tom nudged me, a smirk on his face. I felt a flush of embarrassment. Yeah, it's him. Tom, ever the social butterfly, greeted Mark like an old friend. Hey man, good to see you here. Mark looked surprised but responded warmly. Hey, Tom, right? Eliza's brother. I cringed inwardly, wishing I could disappear. Hi, Mark. Small world, huh? He smiled, his eyes meeting mine. Definitely. Have you been, Eliza? We engaged in awkward small talk, the air charged with an unspoken tension. After leaving the store, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Mark's presence in my life was becoming more than just a fleeting encounter. Over time, our paths crossed more often. Casual greetings turned into conversations, and conversations into a reluctant friendship. He was there, a steady presence in the background of my college life. One day, he caught me off guard. Eliza, I know this is out of the blue, but I really like you. Would you want to go out sometime? I was speechless, the request hitting me like a wave. Mark, I don't know what to say. He waited, patient and hopeful. Just think about it. No pressure. As I lay in bed that night, Mark's words echoed in my mind. My life, once a predictable stream, was now flowing into uncharted waters. And Mark, the unexpected, was becoming a possibility I hadn't considered. The chapter of my unplanned union was just beginning to unfold, its pages yet to be written. The world seemed to spin slower that evening, the sky painted in shades of crimson and orange as I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching my phone. The message from Tom, my brother, still glowed on the screen. Eliza, I can't fund your college anymore. I'm sorry. My heart sank, a mixture of fear and disbelief washing over me. College had been my escape, my path to a different life than the one my family endured. But now, that path was crumbling beneath my feet. Eliza, dinner's ready. Mom's voice echoed from downstairs, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I forced a smile as I joined her at the table. Hey, Mom, what's for dinner? She served the food, her face weary yet loving. Just some stew. How was your day, dear? I poked at my food, the words struggling to find their way out. It was okay, Mom. Just, the usual college stuff. I spent the night tossing and turning, the weight of my future pressing down on me. The next morning, as I walked through the college campus, lost in thought, I bumped into Mark. Whoa, careful there, he said, steadying me. I forced a smile. Sorry, Mark. Just a bit distracted, I guess. He looked at me, concern etched in his features. Everything okay, Eliza? You seem off. I hesitated, then the words just poured out. Tom can't pay for my college anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. Mark's expression softened. That's tough. But hey, maybe there's something I can do to help. I laughed bitterly. What can you do, Mark? You're a technician, not a miracle worker. He shrugged, a determined glint in his eyes. Maybe I'm not. But I care about you, Eliza. Let me try to figure something out. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure mounted. I started to avoid my friends, retreating into a shell of worry and frustration. Then one day, Mark approached me with an envelope. Eliza, I've been saving up for a while. It's not much, but I hope it can help with your college fees. I stared at the envelope, then at him, a mix of gratitude and disbelief washing over me. Mark, I can't accept this. It's too much. He smiled, the sincerity in his eyes impossible to deny. It's not a loan, Eliza. It's a gift. I believe in you. I took the envelope, my hands trembling. I don't know what to say, Mark. Thank you. As I sat in my next class, the envelope tucked safely in my bag, I couldn't concentrate. Mark's gesture had changed something inside me. I saw him in a new light, not just as the college technician, but as someone who genuinely cared. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Mark and I started spending more time together. He would join me for coffee, help me with my assignments, and listen to my endless rants about classes and professors. "Eliza, I've been thinking," Mark said one day as we sat in the college cafeteria. I looked up, curious. "About what?" "Us," he said, hesitating. "I know we're from different worlds, but I like you, Eliza. A lot." I felt my heart skip a beat. "Mark, I..." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Just think about it, okay? No pressure." That night, I lay in bed, Mark's words echoing in my head. He had stepped into my life unexpectedly, filling a void I didn't know existed. My heart was a tangle of emotions: gratitude, affection, confusion. The chapter of my life was taking a turn, steering me towards a union I hadn't planned, with a man who was slowly becoming more than just a part of my college days. The future was uncertain, the path unclear, but one thing was sure: Mark was now an integral part of my story, and the next pages were waiting to be written. The day I married Mark was unlike any fairy tale wedding. It was a simple ceremony, devoid of the lavish frills and excitements one might expect. The air was filled with a mix of joy and an undefinable sense of resignation. I stood there in a modest dress, a far cry from the dreamy gowns I had imagined as a girl. "Eliza, are you ready?" my mother whispered, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I nodded, my voice a mere whisper. "Yes, Mom. I'm ready." As I walked down the aisle, my gaze found Mark. He stood there, looking earnest and hopeful. In his eyes, I saw a future, perhaps not the one I had dreamed of, but a future nonetheless. The ceremony was short and sweet. Our vows were simple, yet they carried the weight of the new life we were embarking on together. Mark's voice was steady as he promised to be by my side, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. "Eliza, I may not be a prince, but I promise to be your steadfast partner," he said, his eyes locked onto mine. I smiled, a mix of affection and melancholy swirling within me. "And I promise to stand by you, Mark, through all the days of our lives." As the days turned into months and months into years, our marriage settled into a comfortable routine. It was a practical union, lacking the fiery passion of romance novels, but it was stable, and for a time, it was enough. Mark wasn't the type to surprise me with flowers or whisk me away on impromptu dates. His love was quieter, more pragmatic. He was always there, a constant in the ups and downs of life. "Eliza, how was your day?" he would ask each evening as we sat down for dinner. I would often respond with a tired smile. "The usual, Mark. Teaching kids isn't as easy as it looks." Our conversations were simple, yet there was a growing sense of disconnect. I longed for something more, something that made my heart race with excitement. The arrival of our daughter brought a new joy into our lives. She was a bundle of laughter and love, filling our home with her innocent charm. But even as I embraced motherhood, I couldn't shake off the feeling of discontent that lingered beneath the surface. Mark noticed the change in me. "Eliza, is everything okay? You seem distant." I looked at him, the words struggling to find their way out. "I don't know, Mark. I just feel like something's missing." He reached out, his hand gently squeezing mine. "I'm here for you, Eliza. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." But as the years passed, the gap widened. I found myself craving the excitement and passion that our marriage lacked. I started to feel trapped, caged in a life that was too predictable, too safe. It was during this time that I met someone at the school where I worked. He was everything that Mark wasn't: spontaneous, charming, and adventurous. "Eliza, you're a breath of fresh air," he whispered to me one day as we stole a moment alone in the teacher's lounge. I felt a thrill run through me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. "This is wrong," I murmured, even as I leaned in closer. "We only live once, Eliza. Don't you want to feel alive?" he asked, his lips inches from mine. I knew it was a mistake, but in that moment, I didn't care. I was desperate to feel something, anything that broke the monotony of my life. Our affair was a secret, a hidden slice of excitement in my otherwise predictable world. But with each stolen moment, each clandestine meeting, the guilt began to gnaw at me. I would return home to Mark and our daughter, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The divide between the life I had and the life I wanted grew deeper, and I found myself standing at the edge of a precipice, torn between duty and desire. "Mommy, why are you sad?" my daughter asked one evening, her innocent eyes searching mine. I forced a smile, hugging her close. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Mommy's just tired." But the truth was, I was more than tired. I was lost, caught in the web of my own choices, unable to find a way out. As I lay in bed next to Mark, his steady breathing a reminder of the life I had chosen, I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to life than this. The chapter of marriage and discontent continued to unfold, each day a question mark, each night a sea of unspoken thoughts and desires. The air was tense with unspoken words as I sat across from Mark at the dinner table. The clinking of cutlery against plates filled the silence that had become a constant companion in our household. Each bite I took felt heavy, laden with the guilt of my ongoing affair. "Eliza, you've been quiet lately. Is everything okay at work?" Mark's voice broke through my reverie, his eyes searching mine for something I couldn't give. I forced a smile, masking the turmoil within. "It's just the usual stress, Mark. You know how it is with teaching." He nodded, but his gaze lingered a moment too long, as if trying to decipher a puzzle. I turned my attention back to my plate, my appetite waning under the weight of his scrutiny. It was a Thursday evening when the facade I had meticulously built began to crumble. Mark had been working late, and I seized the opportunity to meet my lover, the thrill of the forbidden numbing my senses to the risks. We sat in a dimly lit corner of a quiet cafe, our hands entwined under the table. "Eliza, I can't keep doing this," he whispered, his eyes reflecting a mix of desire and conflict. I felt a pang of fear, the thought of losing this escape from my mundane reality sending a chill down my spine. "What do you mean? We can be careful." He shook his head, his voice low. "It's not just about being careful. It's about what's right. We're both living a lie." I wanted to protest, to cling to the moments of passion that had become my lifeline. But deep down, I knew he was right. Our secret meetings ended that night, leaving a void that was both painful and liberating. But fate had other plans. One fateful day, my carefully constructed world came crashing down. Mark had always been a creature of habit, but that day he returned home unexpectedly early, his eyes holding a storm of emotions. "Eliza, we need to talk," he said, his voice eerily calm. My heart raced, fear gripping me. "What's wrong, Mark?" He held up my phone, which I had carelessly left unlocked. I saw the messages, Eliza. All of them. I felt as if the ground had been pulled from under me. "Mark, I can explain," I stammered, my words tumbling out in a desperate plea. "There's nothing to explain. I know everything," he said, his voice laced with betrayal and hurt. The confrontation was intense, each accusation a dagger to my heart. "How could you do this to us, to our family?" Mark's voice broke, the pain evident in his eyes. I had no defense, no words to justify my actions. The truth was stark and ugly, laid bare in the harsh light of reality. In the days that followed, our home became a battlefield of cold silences and unspoken resentments. I moved through the motions, a ghost in my own life, the guilt and shame a constant companion. Then came the day that shattered the last semblance of normalcy. I received a bank alert. My savings account, the safety net I had been secretly building, was nearly empty. I confronted Mark, my voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "How could you do this, Mark? That money was mine." He looked at me, a cold detachment in his eyes. "Consider it payment for all the years I invested in a lie." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave, the implications of his words sending me reeling. I had lost not only my husband's trust, but also the financial security I had so carefully cultivated. As I lay in bed that night, the enormity of my downfall enveloping me, I realized the true cost of my choices. My marriage, my security, my dignity, all were in ruins, the pieces scattered like leaves in the wind. The chapter of my downfall was a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the consequences of betrayal. Each day that followed was a struggle, a journey through a landscape of broken dreams and harsh realities, with no end in sight. The days following the revelation and the financial blow were like navigating through a relentless storm. The atmosphere in our house was thick with tension, each of us moving around like shadows of our former selves. The air was heavy with unspoken words and stifled emotions, a constant reminder of the chasm that had grown between Mark and me. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table sipping my coffee, Mark walked in, his face unreadable. The sound of his footsteps had become something I dreaded. He placed an envelope in front of me without a word. I looked at it, my heart pounding. "What's this?" "Divorce papers," he said flatly, his voice devoid of any emotion. I felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. "Divorce?" He nodded, his eyes not meeting mine. "I can't do this anymore, Eliza. It's over." The word divorce echoed in my head, a stark, unforgiving reality. I opened the envelope, the papers inside feeling like a death sentence to the life I had known. In the weeks that followed, our interactions were minimal and purely functional, revolving around our daughter and the logistics of our separation. The house, once filled with the laughter and warmth of a family, now felt like a prison of memories and regrets. One day, as I was packing some of my belongings, my daughter walked into the room. Her innocent eyes looked up at me, filled with confusion and sadness. "Mommy, why are you packing? Are we going somewhere?" I knelt down, holding her close. "Sweetheart, things are going to change a little. But no matter what, I love you, and that will never change." She hugged me, her small arms wrapping around me tightly. "I love you too, Mommy." The day I moved out was one of the hardest of my life. Leaving behind the home I had built with Mark, the dreams we had shared, felt like tearing a part of myself away. As I settled into a small apartment, the reality of my new life began to sink in. The space was cramped and unfamiliar, a far cry from the comfort and security I had once known. I started to rebuild my life piece by piece, but the task was daunting. The financial strain was suffocating. With only a meager amount left from my savings and the modest income from my teaching job, I struggled to make ends meet. The lifestyle I had once taken for granted now seemed like a distant dream. One evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, the walls closing in on me, I picked up my phone and dialed my parents. The phone rang, and my heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. "Hello." My mother's voice came through, a lifeline in my sea of despair. "Mom, it's me, Eliza. I need help." There was a pause, and then her voice, tinged with disappointment. "Eliza, what happened?" "We heard about the divorce." I took a deep breath, the weight of my mistakes bearing down on me. "I made some bad choices, Mom. I'm struggling." There was another pause, longer this time. "Eliza, you made your bed. You need to learn from this." The conversation with my parents was a bitter pill to swallow. They offered no support, only a harsh reminder of the consequences of my actions. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself in a relentless cycle of work, caring for my daughter, and trying to keep my head above water. The divorce proceedings were draining, both emotionally and financially. One day, after a particularly grueling day at work, I came home to find an eviction notice on my door. The rent was overdue, and I had no means to pay it. I slid down against the door, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I realized the full extent of my downfall. I had lost everything: my marriage, my home, my financial security. I was alone, struggling to find my way in a world that seemed to have turned its back on me. As I sat there, the cold floor beneath me, the dim light of the hallway casting shadows around me, I knew that the chapter of the aftermath was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey. A journey of redemption, of self-discovery, and of finding a way to rise from the ashes of my own making.